Hey everyone! Today I'm going to do this year's very first craft hoard video. So you may have seen people doing acrylic pour type of paintings. They got really popular within the last few months, I think, or at least on my YouTube feed they have been. I had been wanting to do one of these for like quite a while. Actually, I want to do a resin pour. Like that's like my ultimate one I want to do, but it kind of scares me. That's a lot of resin to potentially waste. But anyway, acrylic pour paintings are basically the same except you use acrylic paints instead. So I thought that maybe I would rummage through my craft stuff and see if I have the stuff to do an acrylic pour. I think that I do. I think I do. So fingers crossed I find everything that I need. Pretty sure I have everything that I need, so let's go see if I have it. So I have these paints and glue, and I have some more paints in here. I need to go through them, figure out which ones I want to use. I have cups and stuff for mixing the paint. I'm gonna get a plastic bag to cover my desk. And here in my closet I have a canvas that I plan to use. I gathered a canvas, a bunch of acrylic paint. I'm using the craft paint stuff that you can easily find at the craft store rather than the tube acrylic paints that I also have. I figured these kinds would flow better because they're more liquidy than the tube paints. Plastic cups, disposable knives to use as stir sticks. You can also just use like popsicle sticks or something. These are just what I had. Acrylic powders. These are optional. Again, I had them and I wanted to experiment with them. Elmer's glue, push pins, a level, a butane torch, and a trash bag. So first off, I stuck a push pin into the back corners of the canvas. I did this to lift it off of the work surface so that the paint wouldn't like pool around the edge of the painting. Some people just balance their canvases on top of cups, but I saw one person that used push pins like this and I really liked that method a lot better. I could just see myself trying to put the canvas back down on the cups and then missing, and then having the canvas fall over or something. Plus with the push pins you can more easily make the canvas level. Here I used the level to make sure the canvas was level. I just adjusted how deep the push pins went in with the hammer, flipped it over, and then checked the level again until it was pretty much as level as I could get. This is optional, but I would recommend it because as the paint dries, if it's, not level, then the paint will shift in that direction, and since the paint stays wet for a long time, your painting could look totally different the next day, so yeah. Before opening any of the paint, I covered my work surface with a trash bag. This is a must. This is a very messy process. In fact, if I had them, I would have worn gloves while I did this. But I don't, so I was just prepared to get paint all over my hands. Luckily, I'm just using acrylic paints, so they wash up pretty easily. Then I mixed up my colors. My goal was to do more of a dark theme with some metallic accents. It didn't really turn out that way, but that was the goal. I poured as much of my dark colors as I could into a cup. I just had like small amounts of each color, so I just consolidated them to make as much as I could. Then, as per directions that I've seen floating around online, I poured an equal amount of glue. Then, since I wanted this color to be a bit more metallic, the black paint is a metallic paint, so it already has a little bit of that. I wanted to add just a touch of Acrylic pigment. And then this happened. Oh well, happy accidents, right? Then I proceeded to mix up the rest of my colors with a 1-to-1 ratio of paint to glue, and then adding a touch of water if needed to make it into a pourable consistency. So according to my research, Elmer's glue, or school glue, or PVA glue, is probably one of the more affordable or easily accessible mediums to use for pouring acrylic. The reason you use some kind of medium instead of just using water to make the paint more pourable is because these mediums actually bind to the paint, which helps keep the colors more vivid and helps with the paint cracking as it dries. Glue works decently well, and since this is a craft hoard, and this is my first acrylic pour painting, and I didn't know if I would even like it, I thought that I would just use that to see how it goes. Spoiler alert, it turns out that I did quite enjoy this in the end, so whenever I do decide to do more, I'll probably go and use a proper pouring medium instead of glue. Speaking of, the top two mediums that I've heard of while researching is either Liquitex pouring medium or Floetrol. So anyway, here are my colors all mixed up. I decided to do I think it's called a dirty pour, or it's like a flip cup or something, not to be confused with the drinking game. I think actually the flip cup technique is a type of dirty pour. I'm not really sure. If you guys know the proper terminology, please let me know down below. I'm very new to this. So to do this, I poured each color into a cup. How did I know how much paint to mix up and pour into this cup? I didn't actually, it was just a huge guessing game for me. And somehow I did pretty okay at it. Then I placed the canvas on top of the cup, and then I quickly flipped it over, like so. Now, every time I've seen people do this, the corners are the hardest to get the paint to flow to, so to give it a head start, I decided to use some of the excess darker paint and pour that on the corners. Some people, before pouring the paint on, channel Bob Ross a little bit and cover the whole canvas with a layer of white, so that when you're pouring the paint, you're pouring it onto a wet canvas, and that also helps the paint flow better. I didn't do that here because I didn't want to fling white paint everywhere when I flipped the canvas around. Anyway, after nervously staring at the canvas for a bit, I lifted the cup and let the paint flow. So now, I just tilted the canvas around to spread the paint. Here's where you would definitely want some gloves. Like I mentioned before, I didn't have any, so I just dealt with getting paint all over my hands. But of course, it is quite messy to do it this way. So be warned if you don't have gloves either. Once I was happy with the coverage of the paint, I decided to use a butane torch to help pop some bubbles, which ends up forming these cells. You can mix stuff into the paint before you pour it in order to get bigger cells after pouring, and sometimes it makes it so that you don't even need to use a butane torch. But again, I used what I had, so I got smaller cells. The torch did help to give me more though. Then I just had to let it dry, which takes a while. This is quite a thick layer of paint. Don't be like me, where I tried poking at the paint to see if it was dry. I ended up messing up the paint right in the middle, so I had to mix up a little bit of paint and pour that tiny bit over that to hide the dent that I made. So this looks better than how it looked after I poked it, but it's still dented a little bit. I was going to paint over this with a clear glossy finish, but now I decided to use this clear dimensional stuff. It's supposed to look similar to resin, but it's way easier to use. You don't need to mix it up or anything, you can just use it straight out of the bottle. So I made sure that it was level again, and then I poured this stuff on top, hoping that it would hide my sins. Then I waited for it to dry. And then, once that was dry, I was done. Turns out that it didn't really hide that I poked the middle and made a dent, but it did highlight that there were more low spots from when I poured, so my poke dent doesn't look too out of place. And here it is. I really quite enjoyed this process and the resulting painting. The dark colors didn't come out as much as I was aiming for initially, but I like it anyway. And it does make me want to do more. So what do you guys think? Have you ever done an acrylic or resin pour before? Let me know down below. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I had a lot of fun doing this. I would definitely do more. I already have a project idea in mind for my next one, or my next series of acrylic pour paintings, but the only thing that I would do differently is instead of using Elmer's glue, I would go out and buy some of the more professional additives that people use, just because Elmer's glue isn't really that archival or whatever. It was great to use for this one, my very first pour, just because, to see if I like it. It's inexpensive. I had the stuff that I needed to do already, so it worked out for me. I definitely think you should try this with the Elmer's glue if you're interested at all. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, if you liked it, please hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell, all of that good stuff. If you want to follow me on any of my social media, they'll be linked down below. If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, please leave a comment down below, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much to my patrons for helping me produce this video. If you like my videos and have learned something from them, please consider supporting me on Patreon to help me continue to make them. It's totally optional. I'll still be making videos either way. It just helps me be able to put out better stuff. A link will be down below, or you can just click up here in the corner.